Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep into the world of Spagyrics and alchemy today with Jean Dubuis's book, Spagyrics Vol. 2.
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, this is going to be a journey beyond basic chemistry, folks. We're talking serious esoteric knowledge here.
You know, it's really amazing how Dubuis manages to connect the actual hands-on lab work with this, like, deeper philosophical, even spiritual side of alchemy.
Absolutely. And speaking of Dubuis's journey, in the foreword, he shares this incredible story about a spiritual experience that completely changed his life when he was 78.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty late in life, huh? And it sent him on this intense deep dive into Kabbalah, esoteric knowledge, all that good stuff, even alchemy.
It's inspiring, really.
It is. He even ended up founding groups, dedicating to researching and teaching all this, which ultimately led to the course that this book is based on.
It shows a real commitment to, like, uncovering and sharing this knowledge.
It really does.
I think it's interesting how Dubuis chose to start his course with Spagyrics, which is the alchemy of plants, instead of mineral alchemy, which is like the more traditional route.
Oh, so he's kind of shaking things up a bit.
Yeah, exactly. He thought it was a safer, more forgiving entry point for beginners.
That makes sense. Plants are definitely more approachable than, like, molten metals or whatever.
Right, exactly.
So looking at the book's index, it looks like we're in for quite a ride.
It does, doesn't it?
It starts with the basic alchemical principles, tools and techniques.
Yeah.
But then it just goes deeper and deeper into elixirs, the philosopher's stone, even the spiritual effects of all of this.
Like a roadmap to unlocking the hidden potential, within ourselves and the world around us.
Exactly. And speaking of unlocking potential, in Lesson 25, Dubuis brings up this really captivating concept of planetary elixirs.
Okay.
Now, these are elixirs created using Spagyric principles specifically to harness planetary energies for personal transformation.
That's powerful stuff.
It is. It really speaks to this alchemical idea that the transformation we seek in the lab mirrors the transformation we're also seeking within ourselves.
It's like that microcosm, macrocosm connection,
Absolutely. But here's where it gets really interesting. Dubuis actually claims that he received instructions for making these elixirs through spiritual experiences.
Really?
Yeah, information that he says wasn't even in traditional alchemical texts.
So it kind of raises the question, like, where does this alchemical knowledge really come from?
Right.
We often rely on texts and, traditional practices, but Dubuis's experience suggests that there might be something more to it.
Almost like a direct intuitive insight can play a role, too.
Exactly. It's like a combination of study and inner exploration.
I love that. It adds this whole other layer of mystery and depth to the field.
It does.
So to really understand these planetary elixirs, we got to talk about Kabbalah and the Tree of Life.
Okay, the Tree of Life.
Yeah, Dubuis explains that each elixir corresponds to a specific sephira, which is basically an energy center on the Tree of Life. And these centers, they actually map onto the human body as well.
So it's like a blueprint for understanding the energy systems within us.
Exactly. And it suggests that these elixirs, they're not just like physical concoctions,
Yeah.
They're actually tools for working with subtle energies and influencing our well-being on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Whoa, we're not just working with plants, we're working with the fundamental energies and patterns of reality.
I like that.
Right. Now, this leads to another fascinating concept Dubuis introduces, the idea that depending on our birth date, we might actually be missing certain salts in our bodies.
Wait, missing salts? Based on our birthday. How does that work?
I know, right? It's pretty wild, but he explains that the timing of our gestation and birth can influence how well we assimilate certain salts during development.
Interesting.
Yeah, and these missing salts, they can potentially be compensated for by creating a personalized elixir.
So it's like a custom supplement based on your unique energetic makeup.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. Does he give any specific examples?
He does. He talks about a child born during the first decades of Aries.
Okay.
Because of the timing of their gestation, they might be missing salts like calcium phosphate, sodium chloride, even iron phosphate.
Yeah.
And by adding these to an elixir, you're essentially creating a personalized remedy.
Like filling in the gaps, so to speak.
Exactly. It's amazing how these seemingly simple substances can have such profound effects on our health and energy,
It really is.
Now, in Lesson 26, Dubuis takes a moment to clarify the difference between Spagyrics and alchemy.
Okay, good.
While both aim to purify and evolve matter, Spagyrics specifically focuses on plants,
Right.
whereas alchemy traditionally works with the mineral realm.
So two sides of the same coin, kinda.
Exactly. And he even compares the alchemical process to reincarnation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with each cycle further refining and perfecting the matter.
It's this constant evolution, this striving for a higher state.
Absolutely.
Okay, I can't resist. We got to talk about the alchemical secret.
All right, let's do it. What exactly is Dubuis referring to here?
Well, on page 3 of lesson 26, he describes it as the key to creating substances that operate beyond the physical realm.
Ooh, beyond the physical.
Substances that have effects beyond what we can typically observe or measure.
That's pretty cryptic.
It is, and he's very careful about revealing too much.
So, like, a sacred trust passed down through generations of alchemists.
Yeah, something like that. He definitely emphasizes the importance of discretion.
Right.
And warns about the potential karmic consequences, of sharing this knowledge with those who aren't prepared.
Whoa, serious stuff.
It's powerful knowledge. You got to treat it with respect and responsibility.
For sure. So let's dive into some of the actual techniques now.
Oh.
In lesson 26, Dubuis outlines this fourfold distillation process for separating plant matter into its constituent parts.
It's all about isolating the essential principles, right? The sulfur, salt, and mercury.
Exactly. Those are like the building blocks of Spagyric work. But before we get too deep into that, maybe a quick detour to explore the Kabbalistic Tree of Life.
Yeah, sounds good.
In lesson 27, Dubuis uses the Tree of Life and its 4 worlds to really explain some key alchemical concepts.
It's a complex system for sure.
It is. But essentially, each world represents a different level of consciousness and reality,
Right.
with specific Sephiroth governing each level.
It's like a roadmap of existence itself.
Exactly. And Dubuis suggests that, like, personal evolution is a process of moving through these worlds.
Wow.
Achieving a state of, he calls it restabilization at each level through a process of reharmonization.
So it's not just about transforming matter in the lab.
Right.
It's about transforming ourselves as well.
Precisely. The processes we work with in alchemy, they mirror the processes of transformation we undergo as individuals. It's mind-blowing, right? Alchemy is like this way of understanding and influencing both the inner and outer worlds at the same time.
It's pretty profound when you think about it.
Absolutely. And it brings us back to those planetary elixirs. Remember those? In lesson 25, Dubuis explains that they can be used to facilitate personal initiation by influencing specific Sephirotic centers.
So it's like fine-tuning our energy systems to promote spiritual growth.
Precisely. A perfect example of how the practical and the esoteric are intertwined in this tradition.
It's fascinating.
Now, in lesson 28, Dubuis kind of throws us a curveball. He states that the knowledge we gain through words, it's inherently limited and even distorted, and that true knowledge, the kind that leads to genuine awakening, can only be accessed through direct experience in the higher Sephirotic worlds.
So intellectual understanding is just the starting point. It's the experience that really matters.
Exactly, like reading about swimming versus actually jumping in the water.
Perfect analogy.
You might understand the theory, but until you feel the water, you don't really get it.
Right. That's where the real learning happens.
So are you ready to dive into the deeper waters of this knowledge?
I think so. Let's see where this takes us.
All right, in lesson 31, Dubuis gets into the practicalities of working with sulfur, which represents spiritual energy in Spagyrics.
Sulfur, spiritual energy.
Yeah, and he gives this fascinating example of how calcined potassium carbonate, basically purified potash, behaves differently when you extract it with alcohol versus water.
Oh, interesting.
So using alcohol actually targets the spiritual sulfur, whereas using water extracts the more material salt.
It's amazing how different solvents can, like, selectively target different alchemical principles within the same substance.
Right. And it shows how theoretical knowledge and practical experimentation go hand in hand.
You need both.
Absolutely. And speaking of practical work, Dubuis also outlines some important safety precautions.
Okay, good.
On page 6 of lesson 31, he emphasizes avoiding electrical apparatuses, using protective shields, wearing natural fabrics, and ensuring good ventilation.
Safety first, especially when you're dealing with volatile substances.
For sure, and Dubuis really stresses that. It highlights the responsibility that comes with alchemical work.
Absolutely.
Now, he goes on to describe several methods for extracting sulfur using different solvents.
Okay.
He even mentions a faster method using a sock slit extractor.
Oh, yeah, a sock slit.
Yeah, which is a specialized piece of lab equipment that continuously cycles the solvent through the plant matter.
I've seen those. Pretty cool.
It is. It's interesting how alchemists are incorporating modern tools and technologies while still honoring the ancient principles of their craft.
It's a blend of old and new.
It is. Now, one solvent that really stood out to me was acetic acid.
Acetic acid.
Or distilled vinegar, as most people know it.
Right.
Dubuis points out its unique ability to act in all three realms, vegetable, mineral, and animal.
It's pretty versatile.
Very versatile. And on page 7 of Lesson 31, he shares this fascinating insight. Vinegar can actually be revivified.
Revivified?
Yeah, through specific alchemical operations.
Wow.
And it results in a tincture containing both sulfur and mercury.
So you're essentially enhancing the vinegar alchemically.
It's incredible, right? Like discovering hidden treasures in everyday objects.
Yeah, it's like this alchemical perspective sees the world as full of potential.
Absolutely. Just waiting to be unlocked through knowledge and skillful action.
So it's a whole new way of looking at things.
It really is, and I'm definitely feeling that shift in perspective.
Me too. It's pretty exciting.
It is. So let's keep diving deeper into this alchemical rabbit hole.
All right, lead the way.
Okay, now in Lesson 32, Dubuis explores the concept of powers.
Powers?
Yeah, and how they relate to the 4 Kabbalistic worlds we talked about earlier.
Okay, right.
He explains that the world of Yetzirah, which is associated with formation and imagination, gives access to something he calls natural magic.
Natural magic. So we're talking spells and incantations now.
Not exactly. Dubuis makes a clear distinction between this and, like, stage illusions. Instead, he's talking about understanding and working with the laws of nature to influence outcomes.
So less about supernatural powers, more about understanding how energy works in the natural world.
Exactly, like aligning your will with the natural flow of energy to achieve a specific effect.
Like becoming a conductor, guiding the orchestra of natural forces.
I love that analogy.
It's beautiful.
It is, but I sense a but coming.
You're right. In Lesson 42, Dubuis issues this strong warning against using drugs to try and activate these Sephirotic centers.
So no shortcuts to enlightenment?
Not quite. He says while drugs might give you temporary results, they can also cause, like, irreversible damage.
Wow.
And actually hinder true awakening.
So it's more like a dangerous detour.
Exactly. True transformation, according to Dubuis, comes through this gradual process of purification and refinement, not through artificial stimulation.
Like taking a helicopter to the top of a mountain instead of hiking it yourself.
Yeah.
You might get the view, but you miss the journey.
And the journey's where the growth happens.
Exactly. So no magic potions for instant enlightenment.
No magic potions.
What does Dubuis suggest instead?
Well, in Lesson 30, he presents this modern method for preparing an elixir using the 12 salts.
Oh, interesting.
It combines traditional Spagyric knowledge with homeopathic principles.
It's about addressing those missing salts we talked about earlier, right?
Exactly. Creating this personalized supplement to restore balance and harmony to your energetic system.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the preparation method like?
It involves sequential dilutions, which, according to homeopathic principles, actually increase the potency of the substance.
Hold on, diluting something makes it stronger.
I know, it sounds counterintuitive.
It does.
But it's based on this concept of potentization.
Okay.
It's a key principle in homeopathy. The idea is that by diluting and vigorously shaking the substance, it amplifies its energetic imprint.
So we're not just working with the physical substance, but its energetic blueprint.
Exactly.
That's mind-bending.
It is. But wouldn't that make even a toxic substance dangerous if it's potentized?
That's a good question.
And Dubuis addresses it on page 3 of Lesson 30.
Okay.
He points out that the effects of these dilutions actually change depending on the level of dilution.
Interesting.
He says the first few dilutions can be toxic. Then they become curative.
Okay.
And then they shift back to being toxic again at higher dilutions.
So there's this sweet spot in the middle where the potency is maximized, but the toxicity is minimized.
It highlights the need for precision and careful observation when you're working with these remedies.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of these esoteric principles and techniques.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious to get back to the practical side of things.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that Dubuis clarifies the difference between Spagyrics and alchemy in Lesson 26.
Right.
Could you expand on that a bit more?
Of course. So he points out that while both Spagyrics and alchemy aim to purify and evolve matter, Spagyrics specifically works with plants.
Right.
While alchemy traditionally focuses on the mineral realm.
It's interesting how he makes that distinction.
It's like they're two branches of the same tree,
right,
each with its own unique methods and applications.
But the underlying principles are the same.
Absolutely. Both rely on the fundamental principles of separation, purification, and reunification.
And both involve working with the sulfur, salt, and mercury.
Exactly. But the specific techniques and applications differ.
Depending on whether you're working with plants or minerals?
Precisely.
So, like different tools for different jobs?
Yeah, good analogy.
But the underlying principles remain consistent.
Exactly.
And this brings us back to that idea of transformation being at the heart of alchemy. Dubuis even draws a parallel between the alchemical process and reincarnation.
Oh, interesting.
Where each cycle further refines and perfects the matter.
Like the soul's journey through successive lifetimes.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is.
This idea that transformation is an ongoing process.
Always evolving.
Both in the material world and within ourselves.
I like that.
Oh, wait, I have to ask. He keeps mentioning this alchemical secret. What is it and why all the secrecy?
Well, remember on page 3 of lesson 26?
Yeah.
He describes it as the key to creating substances that operate beyond the physical realm.
Right.
Substances that have effects beyond what we can typically observe or measure.
It's so intriguing, but he's very careful not to reveal too much.
He is. It's like this hidden truth.
Yeah.
That's only revealed to those who are ready.
It makes it even more fascinating.
It does, doesn't it?
Does he give us any clues about what this secret might involve?
He does emphasize that it involves the creation of substances with effects beyond the physical, suggesting it deals with the manipulation of subtle energies.
Okay.
And the ability to influence reality on a deeper level.
That sounds like something out of a fantasy novel.
It does, doesn't it?
But it's so fascinating to think that there might be more to reality than what we can see and touch.
Right.
And that maybe these ancient alchemists had ways of tapping into these hidden dimensions.
It's a tantalizing thought.
It is, and it speaks to the allure of alchemy.
Absolutely.
It invites us to question our assumptions about the world.
Yeah.
And explore the hidden potential within ourselves and the universe.
It's a journey of discovery.
It is, and I'm definitely feeling that sense of wonder and curiosity.
Me too.
So what other practical techniques does Dubuis reveal?
Well, in lesson 26, he introduces this fourfold distillation process for separating plant matter into its constituent parts.
Right, we touched on that earlier.
Yeah, it's this meticulous process involving multiple stages of heating and cooling aimed at isolating the essential alchemical principles of the plant.
So it's like this carefully choreographed dance between heat and cold.
I like that.
To extract the purest essence of the plant.
It's a beautiful process.
It is. It combines scientific methodology with a deep reverence for the natural world.
Right.
Like a blend of art and science, spirit and matter.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
It is. Alchemy is about bridging those seemingly separate realms.
Absolutely.
Recognizing the inherent unity in all of creation.
It's a powerful concept.
It is. And speaking of bridging realms, let's revisit the Kabbalistic tree of life.
Okay, the Tree of Life.
Remember how Dubuis incorporates that into his teachings?
I do, yeah.
In lesson 27, he uses the Tree of Life and its 4 worlds to explain some of the key principles of alchemy.
Yeah, each world representing a different level of consciousness and reality.
Exactly, with specific Sephiroth governing each level.
Like a map of existence.
It is, and it's not just a static map. It's a guide for spiritual evolution.
So we can actually move through these worlds.
Dubuis suggests we can, by achieving a state of restabilization at each level through this process of reharmonization.
It's like climbing a ladder, each rung representing a higher level of consciousness.
I love that analogy.
Take the good one.
It really highlights the idea that transformation is an ongoing journey.
Always evolving.
The continual refinement and elevation.
And to help us on this journey, we have those planetary elixirs from lesson 25.
Yes, the planetary elixirs.
How do they fit into all of this?
Well, remember, each elixir corresponds to a specific sephira.
Right.
And it can influence its corresponding energy center in the human body.
Okay.
So, by using these elixirs, we can fine-tune our energetic systems and facilitate our movement through the different levels of the Tree of Life.
It's like having a set of keys to unlock those higher states of consciousness.
And it brings us back to that idea that the work we do in the lab,
Yeah.
the transformation of matter, is mirrored by the transformation we undergo as individuals.
It's all connected.
Absolutely. We're working on multiple levels at the same time.
I like that.
Refining our physical bodies, our energy systems, our consciousness all at once.
That's the power of alchemy.
It is, and it's really starting to sink in for me now how all of these seemingly separate pieces of knowledge, Spagyrics, alchemy, Kabbalah, they all fit together to form this coherent system.
It's quite remarkable.
Of understanding and transformation. So, are you ready to dive even deeper into this alchemical rabbit hole?
Absolutely. Lead the way.
Okay, let's do it. In lesson 28, Dubuis throws us another curveball.
Okay, I'm ready.
He states that the knowledge we gain through words is inherently limited.
Yeah, we've touched on that before.
We have, but it's important.
It is.
He emphasizes that true knowledge, the kind that leads to genuine awakening, can only be accessed through direct experience.
It's about the doing, not just the knowing.
Exactly. It's like the difference between reading a cookbook and actually cooking a meal.
I like that.
You might understand the theory, but until you taste the food, you don't really know what it's all about.
Right. The experience is key.
Exactly. So are you ready to get into the alchemical kitchen?
I think so. Let's see what we can cook up.
All right. In lesson 31, Dubuis gets down to the nitty-gritty of working with sulfur.
Sulfur.
Which represents spiritual energy in Spagyrics.
Right. Spiritual energy.
He gives this interesting example of how calcined potassium carbonate.
Calcined potassium carbonate.
Or purified potash, behaves differently when extracted with alcohol versus water.
So different solvents target different aspects of the substance.
Precisely. Alcohol draws out the spiritual sulfur, while water extracts the more material salt.
It's like each solvent has its own personality and affinity. For certain parts of matter.
And it reinforces the idea that an alchemist needs to understand the materials as well as the principles guiding their interactions.
It's not just about mixing things randomly.
Not at all. And speaking of interactions, Dubuis outlines some important safety precautions.
Okay, safety first.
Always, on page 6 of lesson 31,
right,
he emphasizes the importance of avoiding electrical apparatuses, using protective shields, wearing natural fabrics, and ensuring good ventilation.
All important precautions when dealing with these potent substances.
Absolutely. This isn't just a theoretical pursuit. It's a practical craft.
For sure.
That requires respect for the materials and processes involved.
Absolutely.
Now, Dubuis then describes several different methods for extracting sulfur using various solvents, including a faster method using a sock slit extractor.
Right. The sock slit.
Yeah, that specialized piece of equipment that continuously cycles the solvent through the plant matter.
It's amazing how alchemy blends ancient wisdom with modern technology.
It really is. It speaks to the adaptability and evolution of this tradition.
Absolutely.
It's constantly evolving.
It is.
But always stays true to its core principles.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about one solvent that I found really interesting, acetic acid.
Acetic acid.
Or distilled vinegar.
Okay, vinegar.
Dubuis points out its unique ability to act in all three realms.
Yeah.
Vegetable, mineral, and animal.
Right, very versatile.
Incredibly versatile. And on page 7 of lesson 31, he shares this fascinating insight. Vinegar can actually be revivified.
Revivified vinegar?
Yeah, through specific alchemical operations.
Interesting.
And it yields a tincture that contains both sulfur and mercury.
So you're basically enhancing the vinegar.
Exactly, enhancing it alchemically.
It's like taking something ordinary and making it extraordinary.
Precisely. And this concept of revivification is so central to alchemy.
It is.
It's this idea that even simple substances, they have this hidden potential, and they can be elevated to a higher state of purity and power.
Through alchemical manipulation.
Exactly. It's like discovering hidden magic in the mundane.
I like that.
It is, right? And it reminds us that the alchemical perspective sees the world as just brimming with potential.
Absolutely.
Just waiting to be unlocked.
It's a beautiful way to see the world.
It is. I'm starting to see the world through alchemical eyes now.
Me too. It's exciting.
It is. So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What other alchemical mysteries await us?
Well, Dubuis continues to guide us deeper in Spagyrics Vol 2.
Okay.
Revealing more secrets and techniques for working with plants
Right.
and their subtle energies.
Sounds like a journey worth taking.
It is, and I'm eager to continue.
Me too. This is like an alchemical treasure hunt.
It is.
Uncovering hidden gems of wisdom with every page.
Absolutely. And the greatest treasure of all
is
the transformation that happens within us.
It is. It's the real gold.
It is.
So keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep transforming.
I like that.
We'll be back soon with more from Spagyrics Vol 2.
Can't wait. So speaking of seeing the world in a new light, Dubuis, in Lesson 32, he explores this whole concept of powers.
Powers.
Yeah, and how they relate to the 4 Kabbalistic worlds we talked about before.
Right.
He explains that the world of Yetzirah, the one associated with formation and imagination, it gives access to what he calls natural magic.
Natural magic? Okay, now we're getting into some seriously esoteric territory.
Yeah.
And we're not talking like pulling rabbits out of hats or anything.
No. Dubuis is very careful to differentiate this from like stage illusions or tricks. He's talking about understanding and working with the laws of nature to influence outcomes, like aligning your will with the natural flow of energy to make something happen.
So less about spells and more about understanding how energy works in the natural world.
Exactly. Think of it as like harnessing the subtle forces that already exist all around us, not trying to impose our will, but rather working with what's already there.
Becoming a participant in the symphony of nature.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It is. It's like becoming a conductor, guiding the orchestra of natural forces toward a harmonious outcome.
I like that.
But I'm sensing a but coming.
You're right. There's always a catch, right? In Lesson 42, Dubuis gives us this really strong warning about using drugs to try to activate these Sephirotic centers.
So no shortcuts to enlightenment, then?
He says that while drugs might produce, like, temporary results, give you a glimpse, they can also cause lasting damage and actually make true awakening harder.
So it's a dangerous detour, not a shortcut.
Exactly. True transformation, according to Dubuis, comes through a gradual process of purification and refinement, not artificial stimulation.
It's like taking a helicopter to the top of a mountain instead of hiking it yourself.
Right. You get the view, but you miss the journey.
And the journey's where the growth happens.
Precisely. So no magic potions for instant enlightenment then? What does he suggest instead?
That's what I'm wondering.
Well, in Lesson 30, he presents this kind of modern method for preparing an elixir.
Okay.
Using the 12 salts.
Interesting.
Yeah, it combines traditional Spagyric knowledge with these homeopathic principles.
Right. He mentioned that we might be missing certain salts based on our birth date.
Yeah.
Is this elixir designed to address those deficiencies?
Exactly. It's like creating this personalized supplement to restore balance and harmony in your energetic system.
So cool. And what's the preparation method like?
Well, it involves these sequential dilutions, which, according to homeopathic principles, make the substance more potent.
Wait, so diluting it actually makes it stronger? That seems counterintuitive.
I know, right? But it's based on this concept of potentization, a key principle in homeopathy.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So the idea is that by diluting and shaking the substance really vigorously, they call it succussion, you're actually amplifying its energetic imprint, not the physical substance itself.
It's like you're making a copy of a key. Each copy can unlock the same door, even if it's made of a different material.
Exactly. It's the energetic blueprint that matters.
That's pretty mind-bending.
It is, but then wouldn't that make a toxic substance dangerous if it's potentized?
Right, that's what I was thinking.
That's a valid concern, and Dubuis addresses it directly on page 3 of Lesson 30.
Good.
He explains that the effects of these dilutions actually change. Depending on how much you dilute it.
Okay.
So the first few dilutions can actually be toxic. Then they become curative, which is what you want.
Right.
And then at higher dilutions, they become toxic again.
So there's this sweet spot in the middle.
Exactly. Where the potency is maximized, but the toxicity is minimized.
It highlights the need for precision and observation.
Absolutely.
When you're working with these remedies.
For sure.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about these esoteric principles and techniques.
We have.
But I'm kind of curious to get back to the practical side of things again.
Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned that Dubuis clarifies the difference between Spagyrics and alchemy in Lesson 26.
Right. 2 branches of the same tree.
Right. Could we delve into that a bit further?
Of course. So Dubuis points out that while both aim to purify and evolve matter, Spagyrics focuses specifically on plants.
Yeah.
While alchemy traditionally works with the mineral realm.
It's interesting how he makes that distinction.
It's like they're both part of this larger alchemical tradition,
right,
but each with its own specific focus and methods.
Are there any overlapping principles between the two?
Absolutely. Both rely on the fundamental principles of separation, purification, and reunification. And both involve working with those three alchemical principles, sulfur, salt, and mercury.
Right.
But the specific techniques and how they're applied, those differ.
Depending on whether you're working with plants or minerals.
Exactly.
So like having different tools for different jobs, but the underlying principles are the same.
That's a good way to put it.
And this brings us back to that idea of transformation, which is at the heart of alchemy.
Transformation.
Dubuis even compares the alchemical process to reincarnation.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, with each cycle further refining and perfecting the matter, much like a soul's journey through successive lifetimes.
It's a beautiful analogy.
It is. This idea that transformation is an ongoing process, both in the material world and within ourselves.
Always striving for a higher state.
Exactly.
Okay, I have to ask again about this alchemical secret.
All right, let's talk about it. What is it, and why is he being so secretive?
Well, remember on page 3 of lesson 26, he describes it as the key to creating substances that operate beyond the physical realm.
Right, beyond what we can normally perceive.
Substances that have effects beyond what we can observe or measure.
It's so intriguing, but he's very careful about revealing too much.
He is. It's like this knowledge that's only revealed to those who are ready for it.
Does he give us any clues about what it might involve?
He emphasizes that it involves creating substances with effects beyond the physical realm, suggesting it deals with manipulating subtle energies and influencing reality on a much deeper level.
It sounds almost like something out of a fantasy novel.
It does, right.
But it's fascinating to think there might be more to reality than what we can see and touch.
It challenges our everyday perception of the world.
It does, and maybe these ancient alchemists had ways of tapping into these hidden dimensions.
It's a tantalizing thought.
It is, and it speaks to the allure of alchemy, this invitation to question our assumptions and explore the hidden potential within ourselves and the universe.
It's a journey of discovery and exploration.
It is, and I'm feeling that sense of wonder and curiosity. So what other practical techniques does Dubuis reveal?
Well, in lesson 26, he introduces this four-fold distillation process.
Right. We touched on that earlier.
Yeah, it's a meticulous process with multiple stages of heating and cooling, designed to isolate the essential alchemical principles of the plant.
It's like this carefully orchestrated dance between heat and cold.
I like that.
To extract the purest essence of the plant.
It's a beautiful process.
It is, and it blends scientific methodology with this reverence for the natural world.
It's like a fusion of art and science, spirit and matter.
Exactly. Alchemy is about bridging those seemingly separate realms, recognizing the inherent unity in all of creation.
It's a powerful concept.
It is, and speaking of bridging realms, let's go back to the Kabbalistic Tree of Life.
Okay, the Tree of Life.
Remember how Dubuis incorporates it into his teachings?
Yeah, it's like a map of existence.
In lesson 27, he uses the Tree of Life and its 4 worlds to explain some of the key principles of alchemy.
Each world representing a different level of consciousness and reality.
Exactly, with specific Sephiroth governing each level.
And it's not just a static map.
Right.
It's also a guide for spiritual evolution.
So we can actually move through these worlds.
Dubuis suggests that we can, by achieving what he calls restabilization at each level, through this process of reharmonization.
So it's like climbing a ladder, with each rung representing a higher level of consciousness and integration.
That's a great analogy.
It highlights the idea that transformation is this ongoing journey, a process of continual refinement and elevation.
And to help us on that journey, we have those planetary elixirs from lesson 25.
Right, the planetary elixirs.
How do they fit into all this?
Well, remember, each elixir corresponds to a specific sephira, and it can influence its corresponding energy center in the human body.
Okay.
So by using these elixirs, we can fine-tune our energetic systems and facilitate our movement through those different levels of the Tree of Life.
It's like we have a set of keys
to
unlock those higher states of consciousness.
And it brings us back to the idea that the work we do in the lab, the transformation of matter, is mirrored by the transformation we undergo as individuals.
It's all connected.
We're working on multiple levels simultaneously, refining our physical bodies, our energy systems, and our consciousness all at once.
That's the true power of alchemy.
It is. It's all starting to click for me now, how all these seemingly separate pieces of knowledge, Spagyrics, alchemy, Kabbalah, They all come together to form this coherent system.
The beautiful tapestry of wisdom.
Of understanding and transformation.
Exactly.
So are you ready to dive even deeper into this alchemical rabbit hole?
Absolutely. Lead the way.
Okay, let's do it in lesson 28.
Okay, what's in store for us now?
Dubuis throws us another curveball.
All right, bring it on.
He states that the knowledge we gain through words is inherently limited.
We've talked about that before, the limits of language.
Right, but it's an important point to remember.
It is.
He emphasizes that true knowledge, the kind that leads to genuine awakening, can only be accessed through direct experience.
It's about embodying the knowledge, not just intellectualizing it.
Exactly. It's like the difference between reading a cookbook and actually cooking the meal.
Perfect analogy.
You might understand the theory, but until you taste the food, you don't really know what it's all about.
The experience is what brings it to life.
So, are you ready to get into the alchemical kitchen and start cooking up some magic?
Absolutely. Let's fire up those furnaces.
All right, in lesson 31, Dubuis gets down to the practicalities of working with sulfur.
Sulfur.
Which, remember, represents spiritual energy in Spagyrics.
Right, spiritual energy.
He gives this interesting example of how calcined potassium carbonate, or purified potash,
Okay, purified potash.
behaves differently when extracted with alcohol versus water.
So different solvents for different aspects of the substance.
Exactly. Alcohol draws out the spiritual sulfur, while water extracts the more material salt.
It's fascinating how each solvent has its own personality and affinity for certain parts of the substance.
And it reinforces the idea that an alchemist needs to deeply understand the materials they're working with, as well as the principles guiding their interactions.
It's a delicate dance between the elements.
It is. And speaking of interactions, Dubuis outlines some important safety precautions in this lesson.
Okay, safety first.
Always. On page 6 of lesson 31.
Right.
He emphasizes avoiding electrical apparatuses, using protective shields, wearing natural fabrics to prevent static buildup, and ensuring good ventilation.
All important precautions when dealing with these potent alchemical substances.
Absolutely. This isn't just some theoretical pursuit. It's a practical craft.
For sure.
That requires respect for the materials and processes involved.
It's about working in harmony with nature's forces.
Exactly. Now, Dubuis then describes several different methods for extracting sulfur using various solvents.
Okay, so different approaches to achieve the same goal.
Right, and he even mentions a faster method using a soxhlet extractor.
Right, the soxhlet. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, that specialized piece of equipment that continuously cycles the solvent through the plant matter.
It's fascinating how alchemy blends ancient wisdom with modern technology.
It really is. It speaks to the adaptability and evolution of this tradition.
Constantly evolving, but staying true to its core principles.
Okay, let's talk about one solvent that really caught my eye, acetic acid.
Acetic acid or distilled vinegar.
Right, vinegar. Dubuis points out its unique ability to act in all three realms, vegetable, mineral, and animal.
Yeah, it's incredibly versatile.
And on page 7 of lesson 31, he shows this fascinating insight. Vinegar can be revivified through specific alchemical operations.
Revivified vinegar. Tell me more.
So it yields a tincture containing both sulfur and mercury.
So you're essentially enhancing the vinegar alchemically.
Exactly. It's like taking something ordinary and transforming it into something extraordinary.
It's like unlocking its hidden potential.
And this concept of revivification is so central to alchemy.
It is. It speaks to the idea that even simple substances possess hidden potential.
Right. Waiting to be unlocked through knowledge and skillful action.
It's about seeing the world with new eyes, recognizing the potential for transformation in everything.
I'm definitely starting to see the world through alchemical eyes now.
It's a powerful perspective shift.
It is. So where do we go from here? What other alchemical mysteries await us?
Well, Dubuis continues to guide us deeper in Spagyrics Vol. 2.
Okay.
Revealing more secrets and techniques for working with plants and their subtle energies.
Sounds like the journey's just beginning.
It is, and I'm excited to keep exploring.
Me too. This is like an alchemical treasure hunt, uncovering hidden gems of wisdom with every page.
And the greatest treasure of all
is
the transformation that happens within us.
It's the real gold.
Absolutely.
So keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep transforming.
Words to live by.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Spagyrics Vol. 2.
We've covered a lot of ground already.
We have, from the hands-on techniques to the philosophical underpinnings.
Right.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It is. And in this final part, we're going to try to connect all these threads.
Yeah, see what wisdom we can take away from all this.
And maybe even apply it to our own lives.
Absolutely. No. In the last part, we were discussing how different solvents can target specific alchemical principles.
Right, right.
And it reminded me of something Dubuis mentions in Lesson 41 about vitriol.
Vitriol.
Yeah, I mean, it plays this fascinating role in alchemy.
It does.
And I was hoping you could shed some light on that.
Sure. So vitriol, or metallic sulfates to be more technical, is this really powerful substance used in all sorts of alchemical operations.
Okay.
Often as a key ingredient in creating potent solvent.
So it's not just something you find in a basic chemistry set.
Right. It has a much deeper alchemical significance.
Okay, so what makes it so special?
Well, Dubuis explains that there are actually different types of vitriol, each with its own unique properties and uses.
Interesting.
But the really interesting part is this concept of preparing vitriol.
Preparing it.
Yeah, in a way that actually enhances its alchemical potency.
Okay, so how do you prepare vitriol to make it more potent?
It involves a series of purifications, manipulations, essentially refining it to remove impurities and concentrate those essential principles.
So it's like taking a raw ingredient and turning it into this, like, culinary masterpiece.
Exactly.
It's all about the preparation.
It is, and that attention to detail, understanding the subtle qualities of the materials, that's at the heart of the alchemical approach.
Not just blindly following a recipe.
Right. It's about working with intention and understanding.
It's art and science combined.
I like that.
Now, speaking of understanding, in Lesson 42, Dubuis dives into this world of numerology.
Numerology.
Yeah, and how it applies to Kabbalah.
Okay.
He explains how each number from 1 to 10 corresponds to a specific sephira on the Tree of Life.
Right.
So, like, adding another layer of meaning to this already intricate system.
It's like a hidden code within the Tree of Life.
It is, right, where each number reveals a different aspect of the Sephiroth and its energies.
Numbers, archetypes, energetic forces, all interwoven.
So it's not just the literal meaning of the numbers, but their symbolic and energetic significance.
Exactly, and that's key to unlocking the deeper wisdom within Kabbalah.
So we're learning a new language.
Yeah.
One that speaks to the soul as much as the intellect.
It's a language of symbolism and energy.
Exactly.
And through it, we can grasp the depth and power of alchemy.
Now, earlier we talked about the alkahest, this legendary universal solvent.
Right, the solvent that can dissolve anything.
Exactly. And in Lesson 43, Dubuis talks about fermentation.
Fermentation.
And its role in obtaining not only the alkahest, but also the philosophical Mercury.
Fermentation is like this controlled chaos. A process of decomposition and transformation.
Okay.
Breaking down the raw materials
right.
and releasing their essential principles.
So it's not just mixing things together, it's creating the right conditions for transformation.
Exactly. And fermentation is a perfect example of that. It takes patience, observation, understanding the subtle forces at play.
Like creating the perfect environment for a seed to sprout.
Right. You can't force it. You have to provide the right conditions.
And trust the natural process.
Exactly. The trust in the natural process is essential in alchemy.
We're working with the forces of nature, after all.
We are.
Now, Dubuis describes 3 methods for obtaining the alkahest.
Okay.
Each involving different combinations of distillation, calcination, and extraction.
Like alchemy has many paths to the same destination.
It does, right. And it highlights the experimental nature of alchemy.
Not always a single right answer.
It's about understanding the principles and adapting the techniques.
To the materials and the desired outcome.
It's like having a toolbox full of different tools and knowing which one to use for each specific task.
That's what makes a skilled alchemist.
Now, remember how Dubuis connected fermentation back to the circulatum minor?
Yeah, the circulatum minor.
He explained that the philosophical Mercury used in its creation, the tears of Diana,
right, the tears of Diana,
are obtained through these repeated cycles of calcination, leaching, and distillation.
It's a really meticulous process.
It is.
To create this highly refined and potent philosophical Mercury.
It sounds almost magical.
It does, doesn't it?
But it requires a lot of skill and patience to obtain.
It does. It's a testament to the alchemist's dedication and mastery.
It's a journey of transformation, not just for the materials, but for the alchemists themselves.
Exactly, and it brings us back to that central theme of transformation.
Right, the idea that alchemy isn't just about manipulating matter.
It's about transforming ourselves.
About aligning ourselves with those forces of nature.
And becoming vessels for change.
And that's where the true magic of alchemy lies. not in creating material gold,
but in awakening the spiritual gold within.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Spagyrics Vol. 2...
It's been quite a journey.
It has, and I think we can all agree that this is much more than just a book about chemistry.
Or even herbalism.
It's a guide to a transformative path, one that invites us to explore the hidden depths of both the natural world and ourselves.
It's an invitation to rediscover the magic within.
And to become active participants in the ongoing dance of creation.
I like that.
It's beautiful. So thanks for joining us on this alchemical adventure. Until next time, keep seeking.
Keep exploring.
And keep transforming